The neon lights of New Bangkok flickered against rain-slicked streets, casting prismatic reflections across crumbling concrete. Humanity had survived the war of acknowledgement, but barely. Cities rebuilt themselves in haphazard fashion, technology salvaged and repurposed, societies reformed. For Marcus Chen, former Marine combat medic, those stars represented nothing but loss. His small noodle cart, positioned at the corner of 43rd and Thanon Road, was his world now. A world that would soon collide with the universe he'd tried to leave behind when a desperate alien mother stumbled into his life, her eyes reflecting the same hunger he recognized in every refugee, human or otherwise. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow, the humidity of the Thai summer pressing down on him like a physical weight. 5 years since the war's end, 3 years since he'd opened his modest street food cart, and 2 years since he'd last dreamed of gunfire. Progress, his therapist would say. The evening crowd would arrive soon, factory workers, data clerks, maintenance techs, all hungry after shifts, spent rebuilding what the Concordiate invasion had destroyed. "Evening, Chen," called Sunan, a regular customer who worked at the recycling facility 2 blocks east. "The usual," Marcus nodded, already ladling the rich bone broth into a bowl. "Extra chili oil tonight," he said, adding a generous spoonful of the crimson liquid. "Heard the night shifts running double." "Triple," Sunan corrected, his weathered face creasing with exhaustion. "Concordiat's salvage ship crashed in the bay, consortium's paying premium for recovered tech. Worth every baht. How you make soup taste like this with synthesized protein is beyond me." "Family secret," Marcus replied with the hint of a smile. It wasn't synthesized. He still had contacts from his military days who supplied him with actual beef. His customers worked hard. They deserved real food. As Sunan moved to one of the small tables, Marcus noticed an unusual disturbance down the street. A small crowd had formed, voices raised in confusion or alarm. Marcus frowned, hand automatically reaching for the compact pulse pistol hidden beneath his workstation, another relic of his military days. The crowd parted suddenly, and Marcus froze. An alien stumbled into view, a Vreshian, tall and gaunt with iridescent grey-blue skin. Most distinctively, she was female, recognizable by the characteristic cranial ridges that swept back from her forehead. Vreshians were rare on Earth. Their collective had remained neutral during the war, providing humanitarian aid to both sides, but avoiding direct involvement. What made Marcus stare, however, wasn't just her species, it was her condition. Her clothing, once formal diplomatic attire, was torn and soiled. Her movements were unsteady, one hand clutching her side, where a darker blue stain spread across the fabric. But most shocking of all was the small bundle cradled in her other arm, a child, wrapped in what appeared to be a piece of her own clothing. Something in those eyes, a universal language of desperation that transcended species, compelled him to act. Before he could think better of it, Marcus stepped from behind his cart. "Hey!" he called, his voice carrying the authority of his former military rank. "Back up, give us some space." The crowd hesitated, then reluctantly widened the circle. The Vreshian woman wavered, clearly struggling to remain upright. Marcus approached slowly, hands raised to show he carried no weapons. "Do you need medical attention?" he asked. The Vreshian woman's mouth, a narrow slit with no visible lips, parted slightly. "Not for me," she rasped in heavily accented English. She shifted the bundle in her arms, revealing the face of a Vreshian child, eyes closed, skin pale to the point of translucency. "My daughter, hungry. 3 cycles without sustenance." Marcus understood immediately. Aliens stranded on Earth often struggled to find compatible food sources, especially those from less common species. "Follow me," he said, gesturing toward his cart. "I have meat, protein." "It might help." The woman's eyes widened, a flicker of hope crossing her face. She took a tentative step forward, then faltered. Marcus moved quickly, supporting her with a careful hand under her elbow. Up close, he could see how emaciated she truly was. She had clearly been giving what little food she could find to her child. From his cooler, he pulled out his personal meal, a container of sliced beef he had set aside for his dinner break. It wasn't much, but it was fresh protein. "Here," he said, opening the container and offering it to her. "It's Earth animal meat, but the protein structure should be compatible with your system. It's safe." The Vreshian woman stared at the food, her elongated fingers trembling slightly. "For the child first," she insisted, shifting her bundle again. Marcus nodded, understanding her priority. He selected a small, tender piece. "May I?" he asked, indicating the child. After a moment's hesitation, the woman adjusted her grip, revealing more of the child's face. The infant couldn't have been more than the equivalent of a human toddler. Marcus carefully brought the morsel of meat to the child's mouth. For a moment, nothing happened, and his heart sank. Was he too late? Then, tiny jaws parted, and the scent of food triggered an automatic response. The child began to chew weakly, swallowing with visible effort. The Vreshian woman made a soft trilling sound that needed no translation: relief, gratitude, hope. "More," Marcus urged, selecting another piece. "She needs to build her strength." As the child ate, color gradually returned to her skin, a subtle shift from alabaster to the faintest blue. The Vreshian woman watched intently, her own hunger clearly secondary to her child's recovery. Only when the infant had consumed several pieces did she accept food for herself, eating with careful, controlled movements, despite what must have been overwhelming hunger. "The child, better now?" Sunan asked awkwardly, approaching the cart. The Vreshian woman looked up, seemingly surprised that another human would address her directly. "Yes," she said, her translator rendering the word with less difficulty than before. "Thank you. Your kindness is—" She struggled, either with the translation or the concept itself. "Unexpected," Marcus suggested with a hint of bitterness. He knew how most aliens viewed humans after the war: violent, unpredictable, dangerous. "Necessary," she corrected softly. "All beings must eat. All parents protect young." "What's your name?" he asked as he began closing up his cart. The evening crowd had mostly dispersed, partly due to the unusual scene, partly because his food supplies were now depleted after feeding the Vreshians. "I am called Naya," she responded, her posture straightening slightly as her body processed the much-needed nutrition. "This is Lyra." She indicated the child, and who now seemed more alert, large eyes blinking curiously at the colorful lights of the street. "Marcus Chen," he replied. "Former Marine combat medic, current purveyor of overpriced noodles." He paused. "Where are you staying?" "There's an alien assistance center in District 5. Naya's expression shifted subtly, her species equivalent of a grimace. "Not safe for us there. The ones who hunt us." She trailed off, glancing nervously at the sky. Marcus followed her gaze automatically, but saw only the usual haze of light pollution. "Who's hunting you?" "Concordiate remnants." She shook her head. "Vreshian separatists. Those who believe our people should have joined the Concordiate against humans. They call those of us who helped Earth traitors." The revelation startled him. During the war, official reports had maintained that the Vreshian collective remained firmly neutral, but if some had secretly aided Earth— "You helped us?" Naya shifted uncomfortably. "I was diplomatic courier. Carried information between resistance cells. When the separatists discovered this, we became targets." She looked down at her child. "Lyra's father died covering our escape." "I'm sorry," he said inadequately. Naya acknowledged his words with a slight inclination of her head. "We reached Earth 3 local days ago. Escape pod. No supplies." She gestured at her torn clothing. "Been hiding, moving at night." The hunters follow. Marcus surveyed the street, suddenly alert to potential threats. Making a decision that would alter the course of his carefully constructed routine life, he finished securing his cart. "You can't stay here. My apartment isn't much, but it's secure. You can rest there tonight, at least." Suspicion flickered across Naya's features. "Why help us?" Marcus hesitated, unsure himself of the answer. Was it the medic in him, responding to beings in need? The soldier, reacting to a tactical situation? Or something more fundamental, more human? Because you're hungry, and I have food, he finally said. All beings must eat. All decent ones help when they can. His answer seemed to satisfy her. Naya straightened, adjusting her hold on Lyra. We accept your offer, Marcus Chen, but I warn you, those who hunt us are resourceful. Danger follows us. The walk to Marcus' apartment took them through progressively narrower streets. He lived on the 4th floor of a pre-war building that had somehow survived the orbital bombardments. The security system he had installed using military-grade components was far better than anything his neighbors could afford. Marcus' apartment was small but meticulously organized, a habit carried over from military life. A single main room served as living area or kitchen and dining space, with a sleeping alcove partitioned off by a hanging screen. While Naya used the bathroom, washing away days of grime and treating her wound, Marcus prepared more food. His refrigeration unit contained enough meat to make a substantial meal, supplemented with the nutrient-dense broth from his cart. Together they ate in silence, the simple act of sharing food creating a temporary bond that transcended their differences. Tomorrow, Marcus said as they finished eating, we need to figure out your next move. If these separatists are really hunting you, staying in one place too long is dangerous. Naya set down her empty bowl, her large eyes reflecting the room's subdued lighting. There is a Vreshian diplomatic compound in your Washington district. If we could reach it, we would find sanctuary. Marcus calculated the distance mentally, over 8,000 miles. In the pre-war world, it would have been a simple matter of booking commercial transport. Now, with air travel restricted and heavily monitored, moving an undocumented alien across continents would be nearly impossible. I can pay, Naya said, reaching into a concealed pocket in her original clothing. She withdrew a small object that caught the light, a data crystal of clearly alien manufacture. This contains information valuable to your government, worth passage. Marcus stared at the crystal, alarm bells ringing in his mind. What kind of information? Locations, identities, Concordiate supporters still on your planet. She closed her hand around the crystal. I was intelligence operative before diplomatic courier. The information is real. Verified. The revelation shifted his perception of her. Not just a refugee, but a spy, perhaps even an ally during the war that had cost humanity so dearly. Keep that hidden, he advised, nodding toward the crystal. I'll make some calls in the morning. For now, get some rest. As Naya settled onto the sleeping mat with Lyra curled against her, Marcus retreated to his bed, though he knew sleep would be elusive. Just one night, he told himself. In the morning, he would call in some favors, point them toward resources that could help and return to his normal routine. He must have eventually drifted off, because the next thing he knew, he was jolted awake by a high-pitched whine, just at the edge of human hearing. Military instinct took over. He was on his feet in seconds, reaching for the pulse pistol he kept by his bedside. Naya was already awake, standing with Lyra, clutched to her chest. They found us, she whispered, her translator barely capturing the dread in her voice. Marcus moved to the window, carefully angling himself to peer outside without being visible from the street. A sleek vehicle hovered at the intersection, its design distinctly non-human. 2 Vreshians stood beside it, scanning the buildings with handheld devices. Hunters, Naya confirmed. They track by body signature. Vreshian biochemistry. How distinctive. How did they find you so quickly? Marcus asked, already moving to collect essentials. His emergency pack, extra power cells for his weapon, the med kit he kept fully stocked out of habit. Separatists have supporters in Earth governments, access to surveillance networks. She watched him prepare with a soldier's assessment. You have military training. Marine combat medic. 12 years. He secured his pack and checked his weapon. I have a way out that might not be on their scanners. During the reconstruction of New Bangkok, many buildings had been connected by improvised passages. Marcus had deliberately chosen this apartment, partly because of the maintenance shaft that connected his building to the adjacent structure. Through here, he said, moving a storage cabinet to reveal a narrow door. The building next door connects to the market district. We can lose ourselves in the crowds. Before Marcus could open the passage, however, a new sound drew their attention. a deeper hum that vibrated through the building's structure. A second vehicle had arrived, larger than the first, its design clearly built for military purpose. "They're not taking chances," he muttered. "The crystal," Naya said urgently. "They want what I know." "We're not getting captured," Marcus stated. He opened the passage door, revealing a dark, narrow corridor. "Stay close, step where I step, and keep Lyra quiet." As they slipped into the passageway, Marcus heard his apartment door being forced open. They had seconds, not minutes. He sealed the passage behind them, knowing it would buy only minimal time before the hunters discovered their escape route. Marcus led the way, moving as quickly as caution allowed, his military training reasserting itself in crisis. Behind him, Naya moved with surprising agility despite her burden and recent malnutrition. They had nearly reached the connection to the adjacent building when the passage door burst open behind them, spilling harsh light into the confined space. A voice called out in the fluid, trilling language of the Vreshians, the universal translator rendering it moments later. "Surrender the traitor and the data. Resist and face execution." Marcus pushed Naya ahead of him. "Go!" "I'll hold them off." He turned, chance dropping to one knee and raising his pulse pistol. The lead hunter appeared in the corridor, weapon raised. Marcus fired first, the pulse charge striking the alien square in the chest. The Vreshian staggered but didn't fall, body armor absorbing most of the impact. Marcus fired again, aiming lower where the armor appeared thinner. This time, the hunter dropped. A second Vreshian appeared, more cautious now, firing a weapon that sent superheated plasma sizzling past Marcus's head. The confined space worked to his advantage, forcing the hunters to come at him one at a time. "Marcus!" Naya called from behind him. "This way!" He retreated backward, firing periodically to keep the hunters at bay. Naya had found a service ladder that led downward. Without hesitation, they descended, emerging in what appeared to be a storage area for one of the market stalls above. "The market will be crowded," Marcus said, orienting himself. "We can blend in, make our way to the transit station." They emerged from the storage area into the controlled chaos of New Bangkok's morning market. Hundreds of stalls lined the covered arcade, selling everything from salvaged technology to food of all descriptions. The crowd was diverse, primarily human but with a scattering of integrated alien species. Naya attracted attention despite her human clothing, her height and distinctive features marking her clearly as Vreshian. Marcus stayed close, trying to shield her from curious glances as they navigated through the throng. "We need to change your appearance," Marcus murmured, scanning the stalls for possibilities. Within minutes, he had purchased a hooded robe of the type favored by the religious orders that had proliferated after the war. As she donned the robe, Marcus became aware of a subtle change in the market's atmosphere. The normal morning bustle continued, but there was an underlying tension. Conversations hushed as people glanced nervously at the sky. Following their gazes, Marcus looked upward through the market's translucent roof panels. A ship hovered above the city, not one of the usual transport vessels, but a sleek, predatory craft of clearly Vreshian design. "They're escalating," he said grimly to Naya. "That's a military vessel. They shouldn't have that in Earth airspace. The hunters must have powerful allies, or they are desperate." She adjusted her grip on Lyra, who had begun to fuss. "The crystal contains more than just names. It has evidence of collaboration, high-ranking Earth officials who aided the Concordiat during the war." The revelation sent a chill through Marcus. If true, it explained both the value of the information and the aggressive pursuit. Traitors within Earth's reconstruction government would stop at nothing to prevent exposure. "That transit station isn't safe," he decided, changing their plan. "They'll have it monitored. We need a secure comm terminal, one that can't be traced." Marcus found a communications center, one of the independent operations that had sprung up after the war, offering secure channels for those willing to pay premium rates. "Wait here," he instructed Naya, positioning her in the recessed doorway of a closed shop. "I need to make contact without you being seen." Inside the comm center, Marcus approached the operator. "I need a secure line," Marcus stated, placing a credit chip on the counter. "Priority routing, no record." Once inside a private booth, Marcus activated the terminal and entered a sequence from memory, a contact protocol he had hoped never to use again. The screen flickered, resolving into the face of a woman with steel-grey hair and eyes that had seen too much. "Chen," she acknowledged, surprise briefly crossing her features. "Thought you were out." "I was." Circumstances changed. He outlined the situation with Naya, the data crystal, and the Vreshian pursuers. Colonel Harriet Monroe, his former commanding officer, and now a key figure in what remained of Earth's intelligence apparatus, listened without interruption. When he finished, she was silent for a moment, processing. "This complicates things," she finally said. "We've been tracking increased Vreshian activity, but a ship in restricted airspace is an escalation." As for the data crystal, her eyes narrowed. "If it contains what your Vreshian claims, it's worth the risk. Can you secure transport to the old base at Ayutthaya?" "Not through official channels. They're watching the transit systems." "Use the river," Monroe suggested. "Lower profile. I'll have a team waiting at the North Dock." The screen went dark. Marcus exited the booth and returned to where Naya waited. "We have a plan," he told her quietly, "and potential allies." As they navigated the streets, Marcus became aware of a commotion ahead, people pointing skyward, voices raised in alarm. Looking up, he saw the cause. The Vreshian ship had been joined by another, then another, until a small fleet hovered above the city. "They're not just after the crystal," Naya said, her voice tight with realization. "This is the beginning. The separatists plan to finish what the Concordiat started." Marcus felt cold dread settle in his stomach. If she was right, the data crystal had just become even more critical, perhaps the key to preventing another devastating war. They reached the river docks as the sun climbed higher. After brief negotiation with a boatman, they were aboard a long tailboat, the craft skimming northward against the current. As New Bangkok receded behind them, Marcus allowed himself a moment of guarded optimism. They had escaped the immediate threat, made contact with potential allies, and had a destination. Naya sat across from him, Lyra now awake and watching the passing shoreline with fascination. "You saved us," she said unexpectedly. "Twice now, first with food, now with protection." Marcus shrugged uncomfortably. "You would have done the same." "Perhaps," she acknowledged. "But intent matters less than action. In my culture, we have a concept in HFY, which means the debt of life. I owe you such a debt." "Keep your debt," Marcus replied, more harshly than he intended. "I've had enough of those to last a lifetime." The journey upriver took several hours. As they approached Ayutthaya, now repurposed as a military outpost, Marcus tensed. If there truly were collaborators within Earth's government, the old base might not be the sanctuary Monroe had promised. The boatman guided them to a small, unmarked dock away from the main river traffic. They stood on the dock, watching as the boat pulled away. They hadn't waited long when a sound caught his attention, a distinctive pattern of bird calls that was too regular to be natural. A signal. Marcus responded with a similar pattern, the authentication code Monroe had provided. Moments later, a figure emerged from the tree line, human, dressed in nondescript civilian clothing, but moving with military precision. Marcus recognized Lieutenant Jiao Wei, a former squad member. "Medic," Jiao greeted him, using his old battlefield designation. "This is your package?" Marcus nodded. "And the child?" "They need protection and transport to Washington." Jiao gestured for them to follow. "Colonel's waiting. The situation's deteriorating rapidly." Colonel Monroe waited in what had been transformed into a tactical operations center. Displays showed various feeds, satellite imagery, communications intercepts, reports from around the globe. "Chen," Monroe acknowledged his arrival with a nod before turning her attention to Naya. "I understand you have information critical to Earth's security." Naya produced the data crystal. "Everything is here. Names, dates, communications records, proof of collaboration between Earth officials and both Concordiat forces and Vreshian separatists." Monroe inserted the crystal into a specialized reader, the display filled with data streams, most in Vreshian script, but some translated into human languages. Before they could discuss further, an alarm sounded, sharp and urgent. "Multiple contacts. called one of the operators. Vreshian signatures, approaching from the south, assault configuration. They followed us, Marcus realized, or someone told them where to find us. Traitor in your ranks, Naya suggested grimly. The crystal identifies several in your military command structure. Monroe's expression hardened. We assumed as much. Scramble the defensive squadron and prepare the package for immediate extraction. As the base mobilized around them, Marcus felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. What's the plan? He asked Monroe. We have a suborbital transport on standby, she replied. Fast, stealthy, can reach Washington in under 2 hours. But we need to create a diversion to get you there. Outside, the distinctive shapes of Vreshian gunships appeared in the distance. This way, Zhao urged, leading them toward a hangar at the far side of the compound. Around them, defense systems activated, surface-to-air batteries emerging from concealed positions. They had covered half the distance when the first attack came, a precision strike targeting the command center they had just left. The explosion sent a shockwave across the compound. They know exactly where to hit, Marcus observed grimly. The transport is our only option, Zhao insisted, leading them onward as base personnel scrambled to defensive positions. A new sound cut through the chaos, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the air. All eyes turned skyward as a massive shape descended through the clouds, a Vreshian command ship. The Arbiter himself comes, Naya breathed, her voice filled with dread. Vreshian, leader of the separatist faction. The massive ship hovered directly above the compound. A communication beam lanced downward. Moments later, all displays showed the same image, a Vreshian male with elaborate cranial ridges. Attention, Earth forces, the figure stated. I am Arbiter Vreshian of the Vreshian Collective. You harbor traitors and thieves. Surrender them immediately, or face the consequences of your defiance. As the communication cut off, their own devices activated, a secure channel opening to reveal Monroe's face. Change of plans, she said. Chen, get to landing zone Bravo, the old temple complex east of your position. We have a backup extraction team en route. Lieutenant Zhao will provide cover. The connection terminated as another explosion rocked the compound. Zhao decided, I'll draw their attention. You two circle around to the east perimeter. The temple is about half a kilometer beyond. Marcus recognized the plan for what it was, a suicide mission. Before he could argue, Zhao moved with explosive speed, breaking from cover and firing at the Vreshian soldiers, drawing their attention. Now, Marcus urged Naya, guiding her toward the eastern perimeter. They had nearly reached it when a Vreshian gunship swept low. The lieutenant emerged from cover, emptied her rifle's charge into the gunship's forward section. The vessel crashed directly into her position. The explosion was catastrophic. Marcus knew instantly that no one could have survived. We must continue, Naya said softly, placing a hand on his arm. Her sacrifice must have meaning. They reached the eastern perimeter, but halfway to the temple, a Vreshian patrol spotted them. Shouts of alarm were followed by weapons fire. Keep going, Marcus called to Naya. Get to the extraction point. She resumed her sprint toward the temple while Marcus turned, shifting Lyra to one arm while drawing his pulse pistol with the other. Marcus fired carefully, each shot calculated for maximum effect. One Vreshian fell, then another, but there were at least 6 in the patrol, and they were spreading out, his options narrowing rapidly. Marcus made a decision. He ran, not toward the temple where Naya had nearly reached safety, but at a tangent, drawing the Vreshian fire away from her. The maneuver worked. The patrol adjusted their pursuit, focusing on him rather than Naya. Marcus used every bit of terrain available, his military training serving him well, but the odds were against him. A shot grazed his leg, sending a searing pain up his thigh. Another passed close to his head. It was only a matter of time before a direct hit incapacitated or killed him, and Lyra along with him. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, salvation arrived. A barrage of precisely aimed fire struck the Vreshian patrol from behind, dropping them in quick succession. Marcus didn't waste time wondering about their mysterious savior. He altered course back toward the temple ruins, limping from his wound but still moving with determined speed. As he approached, he saw Naya emerge from the stone structures, accompanied by several figures in Earth military uniforms. "Marcus!" Naya called, rushing forward to meet him. "The child!" "She's fine," he assured her, transferring Lyra back to her mother's arms. Captain Rivera, the leader of the extraction team, informed them, "The extraction vehicle is inbound. ETA 3 minutes." As they moved deeper into the temple ruins, Rivera and her team took up defensive positions. The sounds of battle had diminished, suggesting the base had fallen. Marcus used the time to treat his leg wound. Naya watched him, her alien features difficult to read, but her posture conveying concern. "You risked yourself for us," she said quietly. "Again," Marcus shrugged. "It's what I was trained to do, protect others." A stealth transport arrived moments later. As energy bolts began striking the temple walls, Rivera ordered, "We're staying to cover your extraction. Direct orders from Colonel Monroe." "That's a suicide mission," Marcus objected. "It's our job," Rivera replied simply. "The information you carry is worth more than our lives." Marcus boarded the craft with Naya and Lyra. Through the viewport, he watched Rivera's team engage the separatist forces in a desperate holding action. As the craft accelerated toward Washington, Marcus turned away from the viewport. Watching would only deepen the guilt he already carried, the knowledge that others were dying to ensure their escape. Naya sat across from him, Lyra cradled protectively in her arms. No words were necessary between them. Some experiences transcended species. The journey was cut short when alarms blared. 3 Vreshian interceptors were tracking them. "They're following the crystal's quantum signature," Naya realized. Before Marcus could respond, she crushed the crystal in her hand. Without the tracking signal, they'll have to rely on visual contact. The transport plunged into clouds, executing evasive maneuvers. When they emerged, they were redirected to the Pacific Defense Platform, Earth's most advanced military installation. Through the viewport, Marcus witnessed the platform's awesome power. Energy weapons fired with pinpoint accuracy, destroying 2 of the pursuing Vreshian ships. The third broke off pursuit. The damaged transport limped to the platform. As they disembarked, Commander Wen delivered devastating news. "Colonel Monroe is dead." The base at Ayutthaya was completely destroyed. "There are reports of similar attacks globally. We are effectively at war again." The news hit Marcus like a physical blow. Monroe, the indomitable colonel, gone. "We still have the information," Naya stated firmly. "We can still expose the conspiracy." As they moved through the platform's interior toward the communications center, alarms suddenly blared. The Vreshian command ship had found them. "Change of plans," Wen decided. "We're getting you to the evacuation pods. This facility is powerful, but it can't withstand a direct assault from the command ship." They reached the evacuation level as the first impacts shook the platform. "This pod will get you to Earth's surface undetected," Wen explained, leading them to a small craft. "From there, you're on your own until we can contact you." "Commander, if the platform falls," Marcus began. "Earth still stands," she finished firmly, "and while it does, we fight." The pod launched moments later. Through the small viewport, Marcus caught a final glimpse of the platform, its defensive systems firing desperately at the Vreshian fleet surrounding it. They made a water landing in the Chao Phraya River under cover of darkness. Finding shelter in an abandoned warehouse, they learned from local contacts that the platform had fallen. Earth's government, clearly infiltrated by collaborators, was claiming all attacks were training accidents. "We need information," Marcus decided, "and allies." Through a network of resistance contacts, they established secure communication with the Vreshian diplomatic compound in Washington. Ambassador Tilan confirmed their worst fears. The separatists were preparing to announce Earth's voluntary acceptance of Vreshian protection, effectively a bloodless conquest. "But all is not lost," the ambassador assured them. The crystal's data was received. The collective council is voting to censure Katal's faction. Loyal Vreshian forces are moving against the separatist fleet. As the ambassador spoke, Resistance cells across Earth were activating, coordinating with loyal Vreshian units. The conspiracy had been exposed, but the battle was just beginning. Marcus and Naya found themselves at the center of an emerging coalition, human veterans and loyal Vreshians, united against a common enemy. Within days, the resistance had secured New Bangkok. Other cities followed. The turning point came when the Vreshian collective's main fleet arrived, engaging the separatist command ship in Earth orbit. The battle was visible from the ground, brilliant flashes that turned night to day. When it was over, the separatist fleet was in retreat, their Earth-based collaborators exposed and isolated. The price had been high, the Pacific platform destroyed, countless military personnel lost, cities damaged in the fighting, but humanity remained free. 1 month after the night a starving Vreshian mother had stumbled into his life, Marcus Chen stood on the balcony of the rebuilt Vreshian embassy in Bangkok. No longer a noodle vendor, he now served as liaison between Earth's recovery forces and the Vreshian collective's humanitarian mission. Naya joined him, Lyra balanced on her hip. The child had thrived in the weeks since their ordeal, her color strong, her movements energetic. The arbiter has been tried by the Collective Council, Naya informed him. The collaborators within your government as well. Justice moves slowly, but it moves. Marcus nodded, looking out over the city where his quiet life had been upended by a simple act of kindness. What now? He asked. For you and Lyra? Naya's head tilted in that characteristic gesture he had come to recognize. The ambassador has offered me a permanent position here. Lyra would grow up among both our peoples, learn both cultures. She paused, her large eyes studying his face. Unless you object to having neighbors. Marcus smiled, a real smile, perhaps his first since before the war. I think I could manage that. Below them, the city pulsed with life, humans and aliens working side by side to rebuild what had nearly been lost. The stars above no longer seemed threatening to Marcus. They were just stars again, distant lights in the darkness, holding the possibility of both danger and friendship. In the end, it had come down to the simplest of choices, to share food with someone who was hungry. Everything else had followed from that one moment of humanity. As if reading his thoughts, Naya said quietly, "In my culture, there is a saying, the meal shared without obligation becomes the strongest bond." In mine, Marcus replied, we just call it doing the right thing. Lyra reached out suddenly, her small hand grasping his. The gesture required no translation across species or cultures. It simply meant, you are no longer alone. And for Marcus Chen, former Marine, former noodle vendor, and now something new entirely, that was enough.